Hi, and welcome to Theater Talk. I'm your host, Kristen Garbarino. Tonight's guests are, from Quantum Theater's When the Rain Stops Falling, director Martin Giles, and from Pittsburgh Public Theater's Tally's Folly, director Pamela Berlin, and actors Julie Fitzpatrick and Andrew Polk. Thanks for watching. Our first guest is Martin Giles, director of Quantum Theater's When the Rain Stops Falling. Martin is also a well-known Pittsburgh actor and has performed in Quantum's Death and the Maiden, City Theater's The Seafarer, and Pittsburgh Irish and Classical Theater's Pinter Celebration, just to name a few. City Paper called his recent direction of The Dumbwaiter a rock-solid, highly entertaining production. Also at Picked, he wrote and directed Beautiful Dreamers, an original musical based on the songs of Stephen Foster. Thanks for joining us, Marty.
Thanks.
Tell us about When the Rain Stops Falling.
Well, that's a general question.
This is your chance to, give a description,
Okay.
talk about the cast, whatever you want.
Well, it's mainly it's just a very beautiful play, and it's a very sad play, but of course uplifting at the end. And it's kind of unusual. It's a play in which generations, like four generations of two families, are involved. But they sort of exist. All the different times kind of exist at the same time and in the same space.
And it spans a vast amount of time, going from 1959 to 2039.
2039, yes.
How did you work with that as a director?
Well, the thing that's interesting about the play is it's mainly two-person scenes, so it's a lot of really good scene work. And then there's, of course, the technical aspect of the overlappingness of it and the way you stage that. But and of course we did some costume stuff too, so that you kind of, as you watch the characters, you're kind of aware of. Our costumer Jen Sturm is a very clever woman, and you're aware of the time, the different times, and it was of course fun for her to design future costumes as well.
Yes.
So that was, yeah.
And of course, some of the characters play the same character, just
Right.
Well, some of the actors play the same character, just at different ages.
Right.
How did you approach developing a consistent character with those actors?
Well, I gave them some things to do that, staging things that they both do, and they kind of reflect each other. But it's actually four actresses really who do it, and the two pairs of them, they just kind of spent time doing it together. I mean, talking to each other and saying. Also, they oddly. I think it's like a pet thing. They all started to. I mean, they sort of look a little bit alike. I mean, we took that into some account when we cast it, but not. It wasn't that overriding a thing. But I think that as they've rehearsed, they've begun to look like each other.
I saw a photo. I believe it was in the Post Gazette.
Yes.
Was it Dana Michelle Griffith
Right.
and Mary Rawson?
Right.
And I noticed that they had a very similar profile.
Odd.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. They both have sort of small features
Yes.
and lovely pale skin. And
Are they playing?
They're playing younger and older versions of each other. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. When I read the play, it seemed to me that the author tries to show consistency through generation to generation through repetitious movement. How did you work with the repetitious movement as a director? For example, very early on, they all kind of do the same thing without even words, going in,
Right.
looking at the window, sitting
Right.
down, eting fish soup.
Eating fish soup, right. And going to the bathroom, too.
Yes.
Very important. Everyone takes a bathroom break, yes. Well, in that particular scene, which we call the soup ballet, I think I lost something there. He pretty much gives you what he wants you to do, and the thing that it achieves is that everybody's on stage at the same time, all the same times in the same space, but also not in the same space. You see, and
it was a very
Yes.
confusing read at some points, and I would have to go back. But I think with the same actors,
Yeah.
it I'm sure makes it a lot
well,
easier for
and
the audience.
he very beautifully and skillfully unfolds the story as he goes to, and the way he wraps it up at the end is, I think that it's wonderfully revelatory. The audience would just go, oh, I think that's what they'll do. Yeah, and to a man, they will make that face, and anyway. Yeah.
New question.
Okay.
Were there any other ways that you tried to show the family connection that weren't necessarily through that repetitious movement that is in the script?
Yeah. Costumes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the two, there's a character named Elizabeth who we see younger and older that Mary and Dana play, and they have a similar fashion sense. And Elizabeth is a character who, at a certain point in the play, in her youth, decides certain things, and she becomes a very rigid, willful person, really strong-willed person. And so we decided that she would probably not change the way she dressed that much over 30 years, over 25 years. So her dress as a young woman, her dress as a young woman actually changes more from scene to scene than it does from the last couple of times we see her as a young woman to the way she dresses as an older woman, where she dresses pretty much the same way as the day that she decided that things would be a certain way. So you can tell, there's a relationship. You can tell. We used for the Gabrielle character, who's the other woman that you see younger and older. We just use similar colors. We use a color palette thing. So we tried to do, lots of little things that made it clearer to the audience what the connections are. But I think that the story is so beautifully told that you end up getting it anyway. I think the play requires patience. Like, you don't have to understand it. You're going to be there for an hour and a half, so you don't have to understand it immediately. You can understand it. You can just let it unfold, and that's really part of the pleasure of it, of watching it, and also part of the emotional impact that it eventually has, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what your process as a director was. What was your, pre-production thoughts or notes or ideas, and did they change during rehearsals?
Oh yeah, they always change during rehearsals. That's you got to go with what happens, and also you discover the actors bring different things, and of course, in this case, since it's Quantum, we started out not with a theater, but with a place that we were going to make into a theater. So that was the beginning of it. We looked at 2 or 3 different spaces, and then we found this space at the Iron City Brewery where we're doing it, which used to be the bottle packing plant. And so it's huge and has a 40-foot ceiling, and so the set designer Tony Ferrari and I were in there, and we started to think about, well, here's what the play requires, and here's the space we have. So what can we do to make, to take advantage of the space? And there's a big part of the play that mentions Ayers Rock in Australia, or Uluru, as they call it now, as they should probably always have been calling it. But and it's kind of an important turning point in the play, where and we decided to use it as a backdrop, as kind of the backdrop of everything, because we have all this space. So we put Ayers Rock in the in this. We were able to put Ayers Rock in the space and use it as a representation of it, and use it as and use it as a symbol and as the kind of the backdrop to all the action in front of it. Yeah.
I saw some of the photos of the space,
Yeah.
and it did seem very large, and I
big.
thought that you filled it really well, but I thought about, one going into that huge space, and on one hand, it seems very exciting because there are so many possibilities. On the other hand, it seems almost daunting because what do you do with it all?
Well, I found that I was excited at first when we started working, and then the more we started working and the more I was faced with the practicalities of doing a play in there, I began to be daunted a bit. So, yeah, because there were just things, there's acoustics, and there's actually how your staging will be effective because you realize you're working on a different scale than you work on in most theaters. I mean, it's bigger. The seating bank is very high. The space is really the space is expansive. So you realize things like, in order for me to see the relationship between these two people, I actually have to probably put them farther apart than I would normally, so that we can see them seeing each other. So that's the kind of thing that ends up being those are the challenges.
Great. Well,
Which you try to not be daunted by.
any final ideas or thoughts you want to put out there about the play?
Boy, you're right. This did go by fast.
It does. Never a problem with theater people.
No.
No.
Yes. Oh, yes. Final thoughts? I don't know. The play. It's a mysterious play. It's a sad play. It's like incredibly, human, all too human. I mean, it's just, it's beautiful. I think his basic idea, Andrew Bovell, the playwright, is that he gets, I think, from the ideas of the native people in Australia, is we make the world by the way we act toward each other, and not necessarily in a political sense, but in a personal sense, in two-person scenes, as I was saying before. So, your relationship with your mom, or your parents' relationship with each other, or the way their relationship with you, makes the world the way it is. And in the play, the world kind of feels like it's ending because these people can't solve this behavior that, as you mentioned, repeats itself over time, over generations. So.
Well, best of luck. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Thanks.
Quantum Theater's When the Rain Stops Falling plays October 28th through November 21st at the Iron City Brewery in Lawrenceville. For tickets, call 888-71-TICKETS or visit them online at quantumtheater.com. Thanks so much for joining us, Marty.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate it.